As we look forward to 2023, it's quite clear that Final Fantasy shows no signs of slowing down. There's an absolute boatload of games on the horizon, and that's just the ones we know about. Those games are associated with a ton of different genres too, showing the breadth of the franchise. And with most of the older games now being made accessible on almost all systems, it's a pretty awesome time to be a fan. 2023 will also allow fans to celebrate some important milestones outside, of course, of the 16th mainline entry releasing this year. First, Square Enix as a company will celebrate its 20th anniversary on the 1st of April. 2023 will also represent the 20th anniversary for Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, Final Fantasy X-2, and Crystal Chronicles, the 15th anniversary of Final Fantasy IV The After Years and the original Dissidia, and the 10th anniversary of Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn, Lightning Returns, and of course, the critically acclaimed mobile game Final Fantasy All the Bravest. Square Enix has also decided to extend the 35th anniversary celebrations for the franchise into 2023, as why celebrate for only 12 months when you can expand it to include the 36th anniversary celebrations too. As such, any games scheduled to release throughout this year will be associated with the anniversary, and we can hopefully expect there to be a few more surprises for fans as the year progresses. It means there's a lot to look forward to, so strap yourselves in as we do an extensive preview of what to expect from Final Fantasy in 2023, starting with one of those games that's now been shoehorned into being a 35th anniversary celebration game, Final Fantasy XVI. It's already been over 6 years since the release of Final Fantasy XV, with it also being almost 3 years since Final Fantasy VII Remake filled the void in between. If everything had gone to plan, we would have been either playing Final Fantasy XVI already or within the next month or so, but due to numerous issues that were encountered throughout development, the decision was taken to postpone its launch by almost 6 months. It means Final Fantasy XVI is now scheduled to release on the 22nd of June 2023, something that was announced on the grand stage of the Game Awards, where Final Fantasy XVI was nominated as one of the most anticipated games of the forthcoming year. Pre-orders were opened at the same time, with 5 separate editions available to consumers, 3 physical and 2 digital. With there now, as of the publishing of this video, being just 168 days until the release of the game, be sure to expect the marketing to ramp up from here on out. Over the next 6 months, this means there will be new trailers, new interviews, and according to Yoshida, a playable demo. With Final Fantasy XVI releasing so close to E3 this year, expect there to also be a huge presence at the trade show. And don't be too surprised if there's a dedicated state of play that happens around May, as Final Fantasy XVI will be one of the PlayStation 5's showcase releases throughout this year, and they will want to do everything they can to highlight that the only place you can play the game is on their system. On that note, it's also been revealed that Final Fantasy XVI will remain exclusive to the PlayStation 5 for at least 6 months after its launch, and it will likely never come to an Xbox system due to there being an exclusion clause placed within the contract that exists between Sony and Square Enix. Alongside doing everything he can to hype up Final Fantasy XVI, Yoshida will also continue to oversee Final Fantasy XIV, and although there's no new expansion planned to release this year, that doesn't mean things will be slowing down. In his end-of-year remarks to Famitsu, Yoshida noted that Final Fantasy XIV will be celebrating its 10th anniversary this year, and he wants it to be special for everyone who has continued to support the game ever since its relaunch. This will all kick off with patch 6.3, dubbed God's Revel, Lands Tremble, which is due to release on the 10th of January. Not only will this add some new main scenario quests and side story quests, there will also be new challenges in the form of dungeons and trials, with patch 6.31 planned to add the Omega Protocol Ultimate Raid on the 24th of January. Further updates will then continue until late February, when patch 6.35 is planned to release. Based on the new schedule of having major patches released every 4 months as opposed to every 3.5 months, this means patch 6.4 should be releasing at some point during May, with patch 6.5 releasing in September. So far, not too much is known about what will be releasing within these 2 updates, but they should be further expanding the trust system, releasing 2 new Criterion dungeons, and we should see the conclusion of Pandemonium. Between the release of 6.4 and 6.5, North America will also host its first in-person Final Fantasy XIV fan festival for 5 years. The exact dates will be the 28th and 29th of July, with it being hosted in Las Vegas, just like the previous 3 in-person fan festivals. This will then be followed by the European Fan Festival in October, with the Japanese Fan Festival taking place towards the start of 2024. Now, it's not 100% confirmed, but with the exclusion of Endwalker, which was announced during an unprecedented period, every previous Final Fantasy XIV expansion has been announced at the North American Fan Festival. Heaven's Ward was announced in 2014, Stormblood in 2016, and Shadowbringers in 2018. Based on that, it's logical to assume that the 5th expansion to Final Fantasy XIV will be announced at the North American Fan Fest, especially as it would have been well over 2 years since the announcement of Endwalker. Outside of that, it's expected that there will be plenty of events relating to the 10th anniversary. It's difficult to say whether they'll mirror what they did for the first anniversary, which saw a month-long celebration containing in-game content, messages from the developers, and plenty of seasonal events. Theatrhythm Final Bar Line is another game that's been shoehorned in as part of the 35th anniversary, but this one makes a bit more sense, even if it did come out of left field. Ahead of the release of Theatrhythm Final Fantasy Curtain Call, producer Ichiro Hazama said that they wanted it to be the last game in the series. As such, they wanted it to be treated as a base version of the game, with downloadable content then used to help build up the character roster and song selection. They also said this would help them to insert music from games that had yet to be released, keeping players engaged for a long time. Post-launch, this saw over 100 new tracks added, but most of these tracks were just expansions to existing soundtracks or music from non-Final Fantasy games that were not featured within the base game. A year after release, Square Enix then stopped releasing updates, and it meant that even though the original vision was quite noble, it kind of died, as there would be no music featured from Final Fantasy XV outside of Somnus, and there would be very few songs added from Final Fantasy XIV. In 2016, Square Enix then released Theatrhythm Final Fantasy All-Star Carnival in Japanese arcades. At launch, it featured a much smaller array of songs than Curtain Call, but this was increased over time, and it took over the mantle of Curtain Call by including an expanded array of tracks from Final Fantasy XIV and XV, but also newer games such as Record Keeper, Mobius Final Fantasy, Opera Omnia, and World of Final Fantasy. All-Star Carnival would even go so far as to include tracks from arrangement albums, and a wider array of titles from Square Enix's library, including Octopath Traveler. But with All-Star Carnival shut down as of the 1st of April 2021, and Curtain Call no longer available for purchase on the eShop as of the 27th of March 2023, the team at Square Enix felt that now was the right time to bring Theatrhythm back, and this time it will be made a bit more accessible. Theatrhythm Final Bar Line is due to release on the 16th of February on the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 4. It will include a whopping 385 songs in the base game, with a further 117 available via 3 season passes. It will also expand things further, including tracks from properties such as Last Order, The 4 Heroes of Light, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and even Stranger of Paradise, with there also being more emphasis placed on Final Fantasy XIV and arrangement albums. On the subject of Stranger of Paradise, the final piece of downloadable content is scheduled to release on the 27th of January. Not too much is known about its different future, but it will feature a Moogle sporting the Dissidia Final Fantasy design, the Lufanians will return as more active antagonists, Emperor Mateus has been teased as one of the bosses, and it will feature a new job that will focus on Jack shooting a gun. On the connection with Dissidia, Nomura had already spelled this out back in April. He shared that they had chosen the title Different Future as it includes the letters DFFNT, but as for how far this connection will go, only time will tell. Either way, based on the 2 previous expansions, those who are still actively engaged should expect an even harder difficulty to be added, as well as a boatload of new gameplay features. Next up, we have the Pixel Remasters. Ever since the Pixel Remasters were announced, there was a degree of bemusement as to why they were only being released on PC via Steam, iOS, and Android. And for a long time, pleas for the Pixel Remasters to be released on home consoles fell on deaf ears. However, as per an announcement that happened mid-December, all 6 of the Pixel Remasters will be released on the PlayStation 4 and Switch in spring 2023. There's no word on whether there will be any enhancements made to each respective release, but unlike the original cycle, which saw the 6 games being released at separate times, it's quite likely that they will all be released at the same time, and this assumption is based around the PlayStation 4 and Switch Pixel Remasters receiving a physical release that contains all 6 games. On top of that, Square Enix will also be producing a Pixel Remaster 35th Anniversary Edition, which will contain all 6 games alongside a 2-disc vinyl record set, a pixel art book, 8-pixel figurines, and a snazzy box. The only downside is that the physical editions, both Standard and Anniversary, sold out very quickly, and it doesn't seem as though any more will be made available anytime soon. Ever Crisis Final Fantasy VII was announced almost 2 years ago, with the initial plan being to release the game at some point during last year. During the Final Fantasy VII 25th Anniversary broadcast, it was then refined to there being a closed beta in 2022, with the developer working on Ever Crisis even claiming it would happen during September. However, after Ever Crisis appeared within Square Enix's annual report with no associated release date, it was assumed that the game had been pushed back to 2023, something that we reported on via our website back in November. Confirmation of this delay then came via a brand new trailer that was released mid-December. New footage was shown alongside a new summer 2023 window for the closed beta. On Twitter, Nomura released a statement that said they were working hard to ensure the game is better than expected. Reading between the lines, Nomura's statement suggests that Ever Crisis has been pushed back as there was a feeling internally that the quality was just not good enough, and this sentiment could have been spurred on by the dismal performance of The First Soldier, a mobile exclusive battle royale that was cancelled less than a year after its launch, with the developer A-Team having reported significant losses due to the project. And that brings us on to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. After the initial reveal trailer, which was also shown during the Final Fantasy VII 25th Anniversary broadcast, not much has been said about Rebirth. As of right now, that makes sense though. Square Enix needs to have a firm focus on Final Fantasy XVI right now, but with the 7 Rebirth releasing winter 2023, which means the game could release anywhere between December 2023 and March 2024, focus will have to shift at some point, and when it does, expect Square Enix to go heavy. Now that it's been delayed, Ever Crisis will no doubt play a big part in this, but Square Enix will need to do whatever they can to try and make Rebirth appeal to those who played Remake but weren't all that convinced, as well as a new cohort of players who are yet to play Remake. To help, and to further celebrate the 25th anniversary of the original game, Yoshinori Kitase shared with Famitsu that they are planning to launch 7 campaigns throughout the year. As for what those 7 campaigns will relate to, well, we'll just have to wait and see. Outside of that, Kitase also shone the light on the Kabuki interpretation of Final Fantasy X that will debut in March. Kitase himself is taking part in promotional activities that are being conducted to raise awareness, as he himself pushed for this show to become a reality and has directly supervised the creation of a revised script alongside Motomo Toriyama. Final Fantasy XI had launched the Return Home to Vana'diel campaign and the Discount campaign. Both were planned to bring old players back to the game ahead of what promises to be another year for the MMO that just keeps on trucking. The initial campaign did end on the 5th of January, but the Discount campaign will run until the 13th of January, and this sees the Ultimate Collection Seekers Edition reduced by 68%. Brave Exvius, War of the Visions, and Dissidia Opera Omnia will continue to receive updates throughout the year, and as of the 6th of January, ChocoboGP will revert to being a more regular game without excessive monetization. This means the in-game Mithril shop will be removed, and this means items that could previously only be purchased via the Mithril shop or as prize level rewards will now be made available via the ticket or guild shops. And with that, I think we're all up to date with pretty much everything Final Fantasy that we can expect to see in 2023, outside of course of random surprises and new game announcements. It promises to be a pretty full-on year, and with Final Fantasy XVI releasing, it also feels like it's going to be a pretty special year. And here's hoping that when we reflect on this in 12 months' time, we can look back with a lot of fondness. Be sure to let us know in the comments below what you're most looking forward to throughout this year, and if you enjoyed this update, please give this video a like. Be sure to also subscribe to the channel, as we have a ton of stuff in store for you throughout the year. Alright everyone, with that, this is Daryl signing out. I'd like to extend a big thank you to all of our Patreon and YouTube membership supporters, especially Benjamin Snow, The Livestream, Galcian Dikujata, Gregory and Lord of Morning, who are super special Onion Eye supporters, and of course, a big thank you to everyone for watching this video. I'll see you all again soon for more Final Fantasy goodness.